Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How is everybody doing? We're
better,
State
right?
of the Marketing.
Better now that I'm with you guys.
Ah, that's sweet, Frank.
He's got his jug of coffee. Lisa looks like she's just been out to a clubbing all night, coming back, ready to go, or ready to club today. We have a special guest, Frank. I'm just going to be quiet and let Frank and Lisa take over the reins. Everybody say, hey, where you're from, what you're doing. State of the Market's going to get a little, I believe there's an attack of something, like attack of the drones today. We're going to talk a little bit of geopolitical.
That's why I wore my camouflage hat today.
Oh, how fortunate are we to have Frank?
Yeah. Hey, Frank, when you guys start selling swag from that company, you got to let me know, because I want a sweet cami hat or something like that.
I'll get you a little swag. What do you want?
So I just want to know. So we initially want, so I'm Leisha Leslie, your chart analyst at Option Pit. Frank Gregory is our K Street to Wall Street liaison. He's in on, and his specialty is drones. So guys, we're in for a real treat here. It's awesome. We have Frank, Andrew, and Frank with Cap Gains have already been trading and talking about drones for how long now?
Oh, years.
A couple years since we started.
A couple years already. So So cool. So cool. We're lucky to have you guys. My question is, Frank, is it really like, what is it? First person view, FPV?
First person view.
The little toys we saw initially when these things came out?
Yeah, a little more intense. So instead of, just looking at your little, DJI drone controller, these guys are wearing, goggles with, AI enhanced views. And I mean, when you watch, I was down with some folks last weekend who are frontline US fighters, and watching these guys fly these things was incredible. I would have crashed within about 2 seconds. And, they're really good, but these, I mean, they got close. They snuck them in crates. They took off autonomously. The crates automatically opened up. There were no people involved. They just snuck them in and launched them. It's pretty wild what they're able to do.
It's like a movie. Really, it's literally like a movie.
And it scares the living bejesus out of the Pentagon, because it just shows the asymmetry of warfare that's evolving. Due to Ukraine, when you've got, a $2,500, $3,000, maybe more drone taking out a multi-million-dollar plane, that's a problem.
Yeah. It shouldn't have been a surprise, though, right? That this could happen.
Well, keep in mind, and I know, Leisha, you were talking, what they call CUAS, which is counter UAS, right? Which is, a big topic. But CUAS is, think of it as layers of domes over each other. And so for each layer of the dome, you need a different system. So Russia might have put in place long-range counter drone systems, but for a close attack like that, it just didn't work. Think of, during the old Cold War, right? You had bombers taking off from Russia, scary. You had, missiles being stuck on Cuba, scary. But the real scary threat was, the nuclear launch submarines that could sneak up right next to your coast and do a launch. And so how do you detect those? And that's kind of what this again showed. And, and really the problem is with a lot of these counter drones, what is the last bubble of defense? Well, you know what one of the prevailing theories is? A shotgun. So, so how do you protect in that last defense from a counter UAS perspective? And maybe the Russian tech just isn't there for that. We're doing a lot on our side in the US, to make sure that we have all those layers covered, but they might not have it.
Wow.
Certainly a vulnerability. I mean, that insane that they were able to get that kind of strike. And if you see the video of it, it was also just the amount of time that these drones were flying overhead before they were even diving down and attacking.
Really? They had time to get to counteract or shoot them down, and they weren't able to do that?
If they had some more traditional base defenses that, we talk about on our side, yeah, they probably could have. But, you'll see these ones where you see the drone also just goes and just, takes a nosedive. And, but it was still up there flying around for a bit.
Wow.
It's
a
like
new
a
world,
Tom Cruise
right?
movie.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It is, Andrew, and it's just like that. All this tech that starts creeping in. But I'm just going to say up front, and we got a lot of good opportunities, but we're nowhere close. Like the U.S.'s ability to execute that kind of strike, we don't have it yet.
Really?
No, we don't.
I don't know if I want to know that.
Well, part of it is we have too much chain of command, so there has to be way too much kill authority along the U.S. chain of command. Much too worrisome. Too worrisome guidelines on who gets to make. When that drone's flying overhead, who actually goes, okay, it's allowed to attack, and we're very afraid of taking the human out of that chain of command, and rightfully so. I don't know that you want Skynet deciding what to blow up. That never goes well in the movies, probably will not go well in real life either. But in Ukraine, they don't, oh, it looks like a Russian bomber. Let's go blow it up.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
That's where we are. But yeah, so it's just, I think what it does show is, the drone, the growth, drone market's been growing exponentially over the last few years. It's going to continue to do so, and they're using them for a much wider variety of mission sets than they ever have before. The drones were originally just, what they call the ISR, which is, you go out and you look at stuff, is the simplest term, and gives feedback, and then the commander could go, okay, I've got a better view of what's ahead, and now I can plan accordingly. That was the mission set for drones, and now they're taking the place of missiles. Yeah. But again, one of the problems is if you look at what they were able to do, our comparable systems are 10 times the price. So it again causes the U.S. to start hemming and hawing about how they're going to do things. But look, we've got some good companies that are putting a lot of product out, and they'll continue to do so. But I think when people go, oh well, if this is what's happening in Ukraine, we can, we're gonna do the same thing here, and the answer is not quickly.
Okay. Speaking of the companies, shall we? We have a list of drone and counter drone companies that I thought we could look at the charts. I know you, the two of you and Cap Gains have already traded these stocks. How long ago did you guys were into AVAV and ARCAT, 2 years ago? I mean, pretty amazing.
Pretty much. Yeah. ARCAT when it was very early, AVAV before it.
Before this, look at this move, $100 to 188. That's amazing.
Yeah, one of the things. So one of the differences, if you look at ARCAT, I think AVAV is probably a better fundamental stock than ARCAT. Both have gotten. There's a little intricacy in government contracting. Both have gotten very good government contracts over the last 12, 24 months. But once a government contract is in place, and you're allowed, okay, this is a drone that can be bought for X, Y, or Z purpose. Someone still has to buy it, right? So it can get approved, and they go out and say, the minute it gets approved, like, oh, we got this great, $1 billion contract. But if only 50 million of that billion is ever actually purchased, that's all the revenue that ever comes in. So a lot of times these companies will hype that they've got these massive contracts, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're getting revenue off them because like I said, someone has to buy them. AVAV, Air Environment, they've got the Switchblade 300 and 600 loitering munitions, which are very effective, cumbersome, expensive as hell, but they work very well. And they're actually filling these orders. So earlier this year, they got another, I think it was 280 million. Andrew, I highlighted that on one of our shows, but they got another big chunk of a multi-billion-dollar standing order come in. Where Red Cat, they've got good orders, but they're not filling as fast as Air Environment. So they're not getting that revenue flow. A little more hype on Red Cat, a little less actual delivery.
I think the hype could be just because of, we have the way things have changed with retail traders and all that since COVID. We have a massive amount of retail traders, and our cat is just so much more affordable that they glom onto that, right?
Oh yeah, and it moved. If I remember correctly, it's pretty volatile, right? So it's up and down and been all over the place sometimes.
That's why that's the one that everybody's heard of, because that's the one that the social media talks about. Fintech media, whatever you want to call it.
And by the way, Andrew, they sell a lot of swag on their website. Just so you know.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, if you want some Red Cat, in fact, they even have Red Cat wine.
Really?
Wine?
Yes, they do.
That's funny. So, since we've zeroed in on those two so far, yesterday Red Cat cleared these previous highs here, and that's bullish. It's having a little bit of a pullback moment here this morning, but Red Cat, I think, could trade up to 865. And, if it really gets going, it could come back and revisit this $11.
Yeah, here's I think what could be interesting for a Red Cat trade, given what just happened with Ukraine. If you look at the style of drones, so AeroVironment, which is more akin to the payload capacities of the drones that were used in the strikes, which were, by the way, were just all in-house produced Ukrainian drones. But if you look at the payload capacity, it's much more akin to what would be an AeroVironment Switchblade 600. But they are very cumbersome drones. They almost look like missiles. They take off, wings come out, and they fly like an airplane, like a winged missile, and they go in and attack. What Red Cat might, they said these Ukrainian drones were quadcopter, 4-rotor drones. That's Red Cat, right? Red Cat builds these small 4-rotor quadcopter drones, and so if people are looking to say, all right, what looks most like what was done in Ukraine, it's going to look like the Red Cat drones.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you say smaller and larger, how big are they actually? Like, they get really big, don't they?
Oh, you can get large ones, but and look, to carry, they said these were 3.3 kilogram warheads, I believe. That's 7 pounds of munition. You got to have a pretty decent size drone to do that. I mean, mine, the one we build, I can carry a 5-pound payload with about a meter wingspan by meter height, right? So meter by meter. And we
that's
can do
one. It carries one only, right? It's not a bunch.
Yeah, if you're doing a terminal drone that its entire mission is to crash into its target, you're just carrying one. There's other ways to do it. We actually can drop off of ours, so and reuse the bus, if you will.
Oh.
There's some different ways of doing it, but and the same thing with the Switchblades. They are they're just flying right in. The difference, though, I mean, some of these quadcopter drones like they're using in Ukraine, I bet they were maybe $10,000-$12,000 for these at the most, given their size, where a Switchblade 600 is going to be almost a $200,000 weapon system for the same impact. So it gets a little interesting. But they're approved in the U.S., so the U.S. military can order these systems. Where some of the newer ones coming up, they're not approved yet. So where's the military put money? AeroVironment, Red Cat, Kratos. They're the ones getting some money.
Well, that's a new ticker.
I thought you guys have traded KTOS
several times.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is also one of my recommended stocks for the year, thanks to Frank.
That's great.
We started buying it in the teens last year. I bought more in the swoon. And
look at that.
I'm holding on.
The teens right here is $19 last August. Way to go, guys. That's fantastic.
That was on the news. So KTOS does some interesting stuff, which is also in the drone and counter. Well, actually, they're doing stuff that's in the counter drone. So, if you got counter drones, you got to counter the counter. And one thing that KTOS does is they've got drones that go out, emit false signals, and either make it look like there's a lot more drones coming at you, so they can make it look like there's a swarm coming at you when there's not, or they make it look like it's not drones, but it's a big radar signature. So you think planes are coming at you.
That's pretty cool.
So they got some neat stuff, but they've also got planes that can take off without pilots from aircraft carriers and land on them, which is pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just to have the mass confusion so that it gets in there, and that's pretty genius. You know, they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, yeah. And full disclosure, we're actually, my company, we're actually talking to them about them building part of our drone. So I just need to throw that out there.
Oh, wow. So all these charts look very bullish on the pitchforks. They're ascending straight up. KTOS, wow, 43. You know, it looks like it just wants to keep ramping up and walking up that channel. Back to
there's some runway on these, huh?
Yeah, exactly, Andrew. AVAV right now, if you see a pop over this, 188, 189 area, that's where it failed last time. It's a gap right there, just above there. You see a pop over that resistance, I think this one can take off and come back up here and revisit 230, 200, 230. I would wait for it to pop up over that, though. Show that the price is, as we say, let the price reveal itself, that it's ready to make that leap over that resistance would be my recommendation. But yes, very nice bullish charts on all of these. The last one I read about, Frank, is EH.
Yeah, EHang. Yeah, they're not really a weapon system. They're building eVTOL aircraft. So actually, whether it would be for some type of transport or for people. So think of urban air mobility is what they're really into. And you see, and look, they've been flying these around. One of the things that this will transfer. So the government loves what they call dual use technology. So if something's been developed for the private sector that can easily transfer to a military use, the government loves that.
Sure. The work's already been done, right?
Exactly. And so with the air mobility, they could be easily repurposed for military, in a military sense, for either logistics transport. So you need to get some materials quickly, to one place or another, or even personnel transport, including, God forbid, you have to get an injured person out. Yeah. So, and what you can do, particularly if they can fly autonomously, is these systems can come in, and now you're not putting a pilot or co-pilot in danger. They can fly on autonomously. Your buddies can put the injured person on this remote aircraft, and it flies back out. And it fits very nicely, particularly when you start looking at next areas of potential conflict, like the South China Sea. And the South China Sea we're going to be going back. It's going to look like World War II again, where you're going to have U.S. service people on all these little islands all over the place.
Yeah.
How do you island hop? How do you get from island to island to island? These types of systems start becoming awesome, right? They're awesomely designed to go these little island hops, where you can see the island over there, but instead of getting in a boat, which could take a little while, you just hop in your little 1-2 person eVTOL vehicle and off you go.
Very cool. I love this chart. It's an upward ascending pitchfork. It has held the support every time it's visited. Here a little bit lower, but all in all, held that support. This one could be a good one to get into, longer term, so that you can ride it way back up here to 24 and then on its previous high to 28. I like this one just because it hasn't made the move yet, right? But yet it still has a bullish trend, and it is proven itself to hold that support. So I like that one longer term. Those were the stocks I had for drones. Now talk about the counter drone stocks. Frank, I had this Leonardo DRS was on the top of the list.
Yeah, the counter stuff's always frustrating because honestly, the coolest stuff being done in counter drone technology, again, like I said, it's layered, right? So you got to think of layers. All the ones that are publicly traded are the big overarching systems, right? a lot of the cool stuff close in is being done by private companies that you can't really touch. But Leonardo has a lot of, they're doing a lot of work in the EU and in Israel. So they're getting, they've got a lot of deployed proof that their systems are working. And they're getting a lot of attention from EU buyers, EU defense budgets. We talk about ours, but EU defense budgets are also on the rise. And there's a lot of money being moved around. So I like them for that more global connectivity. Not that a Lockheed and Raytheon and Northrop are not global, but Leonardo has systems that are being tested in bad places. And so, I really like that. I really like them. They've got some pretty interesting portable tech where you bring these systems out, you can set them up, and you create a massive defense shield.
So it's funny that you would think almost that the drone companies would also be a counter drone company, but they're two separate things.
Some are. I mean, yeah. if you look at privately held Anduril, one of the big ones. Anduril is trying to be all things to all people. So they're doing the drones and the counter drones. Like I said, I think it needs to be three prongs. You need drone, counter, right? You need to be thinking about all those things, and it's really easy. So look, like I'm building a drone that can fly and go blow up a tank, right? But at the same time, all I have to do is put a different kind of warhead on it. Now I can fly into a drone swarm, detonate, and be a counter UAS.
Wow.
And then I think about how my drone gets from launch to target without being spotted. Now I'm a counter to counter. So it all kind of intertwines.
Yeah. Crazy. This also has a very nice upward sloping, bullish ascending pitchfork too.
Is that a DRS? Is that the same?
Yes, this is DRS. I would use a close below 43 maybe as a stop loss. Very nice support down at 37.40. But yeah, again,
it's also the only one. I mean, the other problem with the ones on the list, which are building good systems, they're just so expensive. The stocks to get into. It's just,
Yeah. So of course, on the counter drone, I have the big ones. Lockheed Martin, again, upward sloping pitchfork, looking bullish, holding that support. I still call this Raytheon. I think it's the old Raytheon company. And
it is, and that's been honestly, it's been one of the most frustrating stocks for Andrew and me. Just to every time we think it's going to work, it doesn't.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I don't want to see that stock until it's dips. Like, I just talk to me on the dip. That's all I care about.
Yeah. We've had when we've seen we've had a lot of luck on certain news that comes out, and we play that that news hype, and we've done really well with a lot of stocks. I don't think we've ever been successful with Raytheon, even though you get some news coming out going, oh, this is it.
Yeah,
it just doesn't do anything.
It's just like a tanker truck.
Buy the rumor, sell the news.
Yeah, it's.
But no you have obviously made up for it in all those others because you guys are killing it.
That is correct. We have had some good ones.
How about DRO?
RTX heartbreak.
Which one?
DRO. Nice little $1.63. Look at that one. I like that.
Which stock is that?
Drone Shield Limited.
I don't. Let me. Now you got me. Now you got to Drone Shield Limited.
And look at where it's been. It's been up to 271. That's taken off on all this news. Operation Spider's Web. That could be interesting.
Yeah, all right. Australian company.
Oh, okay. The other two more, all ones that we know. Andrew and I talked about this yesterday. Northrop Grumman, I think. This has room to run because it is at the bottom of the pitchfork. It's up against that previous high resistance right there. That goes along with the, the 200 and the 50-day moving averages. So you got a lot of overhead resistance at this point, but if it breaks through that, it would close the gap at 526 3/4. The previous high 540.
Yeah, so they've got an unmanned drone, very large. So think of a pilotless wingman, right? You don't need Iceman and Maverick. You only need one of them. And then you're gonna have a bunch of drones that are autonomously flying around, working with and protecting the pilot. And they're doing something I think it's called the X-47. And although, along with Kratos are the two companies that have been greenlit to try and come out with these pilotless wingman aircraft.
Well, that's another thing that it defies imagination that, Congress is now appropriating all this money for defense, but how much of it is really this forward-looking money? Do we really need more tanks, more airplanes, more like why? At this point,
the Defense Department has a problem, right? So they do everything on it's requirements based acquisition, which means that someone writes a requirement, it goes through, gets approved, money's getting from Congress, blah 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 blah, and then the requirement goes out. Companies respond and go, okay, we can build something to meet that requirement, and blah blah blah. They build, they go, they get money, it gets tested, it gets approved, and it's 10 years later. And that's the problem, So what there's a big push right now on the Hill, trying to force the Pentagon to go to a needs-based acquisition environment as opposed to this requirements-based environment. And the thinking being that the needs-based is someone on the front line goes, I need this like today, and that will then drive the procurement process as opposed to this writing of requirements. And so your point is spot on, Andrew, because a lot of that money that will move into defense budgets today was actually for systems they came up with 6-7 years ago, and that's where they want the money to move, because that was the way the process worked. But all those systems are pointless to somebody, or they have to give the money to these very large defense contractors to keep building a bunch of giant ships that we don't really need. Right. I mean, the most egregious thing to me was, the B-52 bomber, which has been, it's going to be flying for like 70 years at this point.
Amazing.
And we have I think it's 70 or 80 B-52s left, and they appropriated billions and hundreds of billions of dollars to revamp these 80-year-old airplanes. Why?
That doesn't make sense.
No, why? Yeah. Which, by the way, look a lot like the ones that got blown up in Russia.
Yeah, that doesn't. Just to the average Joe, that doesn't seem to make sense. I don't know.
It makes sense if you like to waste a lot of money.
So. Yeah, they're really good at at wasting money. That's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, we know that. It's awful. But once Northrop goes through this, the MACD's looking bullish. It does need to pop over that area though before you get that nice. I think it would run up right after that. And last one we all know is Boeing.
Yeah,
Boeing's had a really nice run.
Yeah, I don't look at Boeing a whole lot for military applications as much. I'm sure they've got sub groups that get involved. I just don't, from a defense standpoint, I don't look at them that much. But they've gotten some good orders lately from. Didn't Saudi Arabia just give Boeing a massive 737 order or something?
Wasn't there a deal when Trump got the new plane?
Yeah, so I think there was some good revenue opportunities for them from that standpoint.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a good idea or what with the accepting a gift of an air. I don't know.
I mean, from a really a hostile entity, Qatar is not, they're not necessarily friendly.
All right.
So they do give a lot of money to our Ivy League institutions to try and warp the views of kids. So
they do that, don't they? They do that. So overall, our stock choices, we like AVAV. And again, wait for it to break above this previous high. And then I believe you're safe walking, entering. KTOS we like, and we like RCAT, right? Am I
Yes.
wrong on those?
I think
Frank?
we're looking good. Yeah, I think that all looks positive.
The
And
DRS is
we do have a
interesting. You
couple
like
of open positions in those. We're short puts in the 6 puts in RCAT, but we got good prices for those, and we're long strangles in KTOS. Again, we got good prices for that. Both those trades are up money already, but I'm just
Awesome.
saying those are positions I have on. And
that's
do with them
fantastic.
what you will, but of course you can join capital gains. And some of Frank's ideas infuse my brain, and they do trickle out to other products besides capital gains. But capital gains, we just stay in the Frank lane. So Frank expert again, energy, drones, and of course things that go on in Washington, how all that policy affects stocks going forward. So
Which is fantastic. And from what I understand, your track record in cap gains is killing it too, right?
that is correct.
We're doing all right.
Guys, if you're not part of capital gains, that Andrew and Frank, look at this. Look at all the green. That's awesome, guys.
Yep.
They meet weekly. They're into new things that no one else is into yet, like drones 2 years ago, which is so cool. And
Nuclear reactors, SMR.
nuclear reactors.
early
There you go. Very cool. I will get the link for to join or check out Cap Gains. Unless Justin has it, he's here. If not, once we hang up, I will drop the link in the chat here. Any last, drones are going to be the thing for a while. They're going to, where do we go from here?
The opportunity is great. I like that Leisha gave us a lot of runway on those.
Yeah.
And how the thing with this Ukraine war, it's like this will always, the more this is in the news, the more we're going to see like it's continuing to fluff. Volatility keeps going up. So it's a great opportunity. I mean, the war is the war there. So might as well do our best.
It's funny because just when it kind of died down, it's not really in the news. Are we still giving Ukraine money? I don't even know.
It's hard to tell. Like they figured out a way clearly, right?
We don't talk about it. How long has the war been going on?
I mean, it's going on 3 years, right?
3 years. And now it's, you don't really, it's not in the front page any longer. And now suddenly it's ramped up again. No,
and look, I mean, it's going to, if you don't think Russia's planning a counter to this embarrassment of a strike, you're not thinking strategically. They're gonna do something which is going to escalate it, and it's going to be a big mess.
Right. So. Also, Frank, the idea of bad people, organized crime, or terrorists getting their hands on these kinds of drones and wreaking havoc wherever they want.
Yeah,
right?
Look,
What's to stop that?
Look, the one good thing about an ongoing war is that all the equipment tends to go to the people in the war. The bad stuff really occurs when suddenly there's peace between Ukraine and Russia, and now you got, someone built 1 million of these little small attack drones.
And they want to sell them.
They want to sell them somewhere, right? And,
right.
Along comes Hamas, and they go, "Ah, we got some cash."
Right.
Wow.
That's when it gets scary.
Yeah, and that's probably in our future, right? Somewhere. Sadly,
it unfortunately will be. Yeah. So.
Awesome. I feel like I learned so much. It's so cool. You guys make a fabulous team for Cap Gains. Like I said, I'll drop that link. And
Tuesdays at 2 p.m.
So cool that you were so far ahead of the game on this. And I know you're already talking about stuff that no one else is right now. And I'll let the people become a member to learn those things. We can't let your secrets out.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day.
All right, guys. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.